Welcome back to Built on Blues. I'm your host, Graeme Bryks, and we talk a lot on this show, about building better, but that usually means faster or cheaper. Today, we are talking about building healthier. I got Jess Glowacki from EcoFi on the line. He's not just building houses, he's trying to build self-sustaining ecosystems where the house is just one part of the living machine. Jess, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you again. It's a pleasure to meet you and glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here as well. I got a lot of questions to ask you about what you guys are doing, and I'm really interested to get started. I've been looking at your work from Montana to Bali, and it's heavy on the concept of regenerative design. Take us back to the start. Most architectures just want to win awards with pretty buildings, and what happened in your career that made you pivot from designing structures to self-sustaining communities?
Well, it's quite the little story, but yeah, I started off in Montana State University, getting my undergrad and master's in architecture, focused heavily on environmental design issues and things like that. But when we got out into the real world, I worked with Kath Williams. We worked on a lot of projects in around the world, from Taiwan to just Wyoming, I mean, all around. So we ended up doing a lot of amazing things with LEED, but I learned very quickly that it was very hard to get the real ecological and sustainable concepts into the project where they were for the end users, not traditionally for the developers to make money off of. And that's where it kind of came down to where I worked on projects there, worked with university projects in Arizona and with Midwestern University, lived in Colombia for 4 years. And that's where I started my own BIM firm, worked on projects extensively down there with the University of Javeriana and a lot of different development. And I just learning the organizational structure of the construction industry, where we were using building information modeling, where we found that we were figuring out all the data, all the numbers. And when we were working with different construction firms and different things, they would always have different numbers and values and things than we would have. And it just became kind of almost a battle of going, who's telling the truth? And, that was where I loved building information modeling, as it's one source of truth, and, creating digital twins and doing like that. But wonderful experience living and working down in Colombia during that time. Economy kind of crashed. So I moved on from that environment, came back to Michigan, where I started working on projects here. We ended up sitting there and, trying to create models like this where we had our own construction, indoor construction, our own teams, our own engineers, everything to start building, developing projects. And same types of situation came up where it was all just about the money and, not the end user. So a lot of the time when I worked on projects and went around the world, ecological projects for communities and things was my passion, but it was really hard to find the funding to actually do these types of developments. And, so that's when I kind of switched a lot of my things over to going into when I went to Bali, was working with people that were building what they call kos-kosans, where they were building them for the communities for affordable housing. And we were building those structures with Bamboology, a company that basically was making strand-woven bamboo, which they taking bamboo pieces and structurally combining them to make them into materials that we could use that were structurally safe. It's not like using natural bamboo is not safe. When I worked with Ibuku, they do amazing projects and stuff like that. But when it comes to code compliance, using natural bamboo is very tough to actually sit there, use a natural material to say how, what type of structural standards are with that material that they can actually measure. And,
Yeah.
to make it safe around the world, that's where I started focusing on, doing the manufacturing for materials that we could use that basically encompassed all those types of things, and making them into a safe model that could be tested with ASTM standards and, ANSI and everything that, we have to follow to make sure as designers and architects that we actually are building safe buildings for people. And I just always had a passion for trying to find the newest and the best. Most all of my projects that I've ever done in my life, a project is done from scratch. We don't sit there and say, we're just going to use a model that we used from the old to sit there and go, this is how we do projects. And we have a library of materials, and that's where we're trying to get is going, how do we start sharing the knowledge of the world to actually help people to build the most, ecological regenerative projects in the world.
Yeah, yeah, of course. It's hard to take that traditional mindset, especially with, North America economy where it's very profit driven, especially when it comes to building homes. But yeah, it's also about education, about, acknowledge or not acknowledging, but informing and educating the person that you're wanting to work with, being like, hey, like what we're trying to do here is something bigger than the money side of things. So
And
so
and it's a challenge getting people to know to think about that. I mean, we have to make money. We can't be losing money on what we're doing. Focus for everything is kind of where we're trying to go. Is the end user, the people that live in these communities, that live in these buildings, are the core structure of what we're trying to basically solve. Is going, let's not cut out the things that are going to make the people's lives better, healthier, less costs for their operational costs, and still giving them beautiful and amazing architecture instead of just going, hey, we're going to make you the most affordable box and, call it good. We
yeah.
need to start thinking about how people live and how they connect with nature. So one of the biggest things for people's health and well-being is that connection with nature.
Yeah, of course. And always keeping that line of communication as honest and transparent as you can too, is like it like you said, it's all coming back down to that person who's actually gonna be living in the house. It's not about, oh, like I want to make this design because I think it looks nice. Well, what if the person living in that home doesn't like it, right? Like it's always making sure that line of communication is open so that you know exactly what that owner wants down the line and know that community in a sense, because you guys are going to be building, these massive communities where, like you said, you want to be self-sufficient and, people working for each other and with each other, and building these fantastic projects. I want to get into the nuts and bolts for the builders listening. You using, the regenerative BIM. Can you break down that science behind us? Like if I'm a guy who used to framing with 2x4s and fiberglass, how does an EcoFi wall look like? Like, how do these materials actually create self-sustaining homes?
Well, and it depends on the climate. Every single situation, wherever you're building around the world, you have to think about different things. How's the moisture transference? What's the thermal dynamics in that wall? What's the best materials that you have locally so we're not shipping things from all around the world? And what we're trying to do is solve doing those types of systems and going, right now, our system we're working on mostly is to do a panelized system where we build it indoors. We're building the frame and the different panels, having different types of connections, insulation, putting to these cavities. And some of them we can do a single wall. Some of them we want to do a double wall based on the region and the area, and putting barriers and different things in the proper locations based on the science of that wall to make sure we're not causing more problems, creating buildings that are healthy and safe. So right now we're working on a design that we're going to build a prototype here on my own property where we're sitting there and using this technique and using hemp as the insulation. We'll be doing, different types of things in different parts of the house to actually sit there and experiment with it. You test and do over time with R&D to go, what is the best methods for doing this? Should we be treating the north wall different than the south wall? And thinking about different things, the ones that aren't receiving sun. And then, in this climate in northern Michigan where we're at, we're in a snowbelt region. We don't see the sun very often during the winter. So the whole passive strategy that people are saying is the best thing to be doing doesn't really work in all different areas, because if you don't get the sun, you're really not being able to take advantage of the sun, what that can offer. We can still design in the same methodologies, but as science has taught us, we do, when we're looking at methods for what is the best R value to put in a project, anything over R38 is basically negligible. So the biggest thing is about making, it tight and not letting too much things go in and out of the building for air move, but then actually making sure that you do have good air exchange so you're not creating sick building syndromes inside. Because we've had a lot of these things happen where people are sitting there and designing these super tight structures and they don't breathe and they're not using the ventilation structures or putting the right mechanical systems in. And then they're having mold issues and different things like that. So what we're doing is coming up with systems that can be basically built indoors and sitting there and making them so they're adaptable so that you can assemble them and disassemble them and basically put additions onto them, build them up to 3 stories tall. And the architectural design doesn't have to be one thing. We're trying to stick to us right now as a rule of 3, that we have probably 3 different types of panels that meets different requirements, and we can actually change the amount of insulation and type and thickness in there to meet whatever codes that are required for whatever area we're going to build. But then just coming up with methodologies to give a system of tools for people to be able to build and educate them to go, this is a simple approach where it can be like almost a DIY situation where you're sitting there and giving people a set of construction documents that are more similar to like an IKEA set of drawings where you're going, here's where you are, here's the panels that you've ordered, and here's how you can assemble them, and make it a simple kit where people can sit there and build these when they want, make additions. The concept is also to put them on very low impact foundations like helical piles and very, temporary types of foundations so that people can sit there and go, well, if I want to move it or move to a different location, do things, make additions, they can go off of a grid system that we're basing off of Fibonacci numbers to build, appealing, beautiful spaces for people that are energetically functional and healthy spaces for people. And really trying to focus on a lot of things with the wellness communities as well for doing projects where we can sit there and incorporate the wellness things like spas and ice baths and Bhutanese baths and things that are very, cool and dear to my heart, and things that I learned a lot about when I was like traveling in Europe and going to these bathhouses and going, if we can put these types of bathhouses into places where people can have their own regenerative places within their communities, just giving people what they want rather than just the bare minimum to live. So, but with these structures, we're just coming up with a methodology of going, if we can sit there and make mobile manufacturing, micro manufacturing for people and give them the tools to be able to do this and utilize whether it's bamboo, hemp, sorghum, different types of materials that they can get locally, clay, doing WASP 3D printers to print clay, with a combination of concrete if necessary, minimizing the amount of concrete we need to put in these projects is the goal, is to go, how can we build healthy, sustainable projects and get these prices down to something that's affordable? And the reality is going to make this into something that's basically a system that we can sit there and franchise and give out to people. And the only thing that we're going to keep them to is that they don't monopolize this and just try to make a ton of money, that they're open and honest with their community about actually operating and keeping them to standards, making sure that the end user is the end person in mind. And when you're building these for people that they're, you have to make profit, but if we can make those things open and transparent to everyone that's working with everything, that we can keep a standard to go, hey, make 30% on everything you do is great. You have a great operations and company and you'll be doing very successful work, but it's just the greed of the world where people go, I've built projects where we built it for $60, $50 a square foot, but then all they want to do is go and turn it around and sell it for,
More.
like not even just more, like triple or whatever the market value is. And
Yeah.
when you build them something that's absolutely beautiful as well, then they think it's worth more as well. And it is. But the reality is we need to start going to the thing of going, well, that's why we started at L3C. L3C is a low profit limited liability company, is that it's not based on profit. Profit is going to be in the company and everything we do. But the main thing is, what are we doing for the community members and the people that we serve? And these are the people, these are our villages. And we need to start thinking about people as our neighbors instead of our people that we are selling things to and trying to make the most off of that we can.
Yeah, or even competition as well. It's a lot of people are just trying to battle against each other, especially nowadays. And I think what you guys are doing is incredible. I like how you're building them even in your own backyard, just so that you are hands-on and you know exactly what you want from the project and you know what you want to give to the client. And about franchising this all over the world, essentially one day, hopefully, and being able to bring these affordable housing to people who are having that hard time nowadays, because things are just getting more and more expensive, and people are looking, like you said, are getting a little bit greedy with more and more profit. And I love hearing that there is the model out there which you guys have, where it's like you kind of like you do need to make money, you do need to make some money in order to make sure that you're able to carry this process and like carry this mission and this goal across the world. But yeah, it sounds incredibly complex to manage as well. How do you manage the operational side of things? you got a lot of moving parts, it sounds like. Like, what tools are you keeping from the vision from getting lost in the chaos of the construction?
There's so many different things that we're doing, and we are also sitting there trying to simplify this process so it isn't something that's unattainable. We're trying to go, how do we keep this as like, here's the group that does the design, here's the group that actually does the manufacturing, and here's the group that helps people actually procure their property and actually understand the things that are done to actually get it built, and then have a team to help them assemble. And just as simple as we can keep things is what we're going for. You know, the, there is no simple process to building in this world, and every different environment deserves a different look on how things are. I just got back from Guatemala before the holidays, and we're working on putting something together down there as well. And, you got to understand that every place you go, it's a whole nother complex situation of the political landscape, how the people are, how are we going to treat the community and the people that are there, that we can actually sit there and go, we need to give back to the community. And so one thing that we are sitting there focusing on is, it's not a nonprofit, it is for profit, but what we're doing is going from high end all the way down to donating projects where we're not losing money, but we're actually sitting there going, if you're doing very well and you make a mixed use development, you can sit there and make very high end, you can make community spaces, you can make things that actually sit there and make money for the community and everybody involved within these environments. But then, if we do 10% or a third of the project to go, hey, we're going to do things that are at cost for the people that are living here in the community. That's the business model we're looking to do, is go, how can we have impact and helping out the local people and giving back, actually even sitting there, if they are part of these communities and the manufacturing is the hub for them, that we're creating co-creative communities where they all have the opportunity to use this and be creative and use it. And that it's just kind of becomes something that's like, it helps everyone. And that's the concept that we're working on. And,
Hmm.
to make it simple, and what tools are we using? We're using Revit. We're using building information modeling. We're using, different programs for running the teams like Asana, different things to go, how do we keep this information and stuff clean, tighten it, and that people can sit there and know what their tasks are, what they have to get done. And then just like a simple stream of sitting there and doing these things. And for visualization for Revit, we give things like Twin Motion where people can go in VR and look through their projects, see how that's going to be designed. We're willing to work with people to even go, hey, send us your sketches, send us the things that you want to do, and we'll make it actually reality. Because as an architect, I have people that send me plans all the time and they're going, I bought these online. We'd like to get it through the building department. They say that we can't use these drawings. Can you get them up, get them to where we can use them? And I normally tell them, I'm like, why didn't you just take some screenshots of those things that you wanted instead of
Send
purchasing
them to
some
you.
plans that don't work?
Yeah.
Because you need to have a local designer or architect in your region knowing what the local code and building departments need to do.
Hmm.
Every township's different, every state's different, every place is different, and they have different requirements. And that's why EcoFi always works with the local architecture and engineering team on any projects we do all around the world to go, they are the experts. They know their town, they know their politics, so that they can get these things running. So to simplify this, we're basically just going, we are the developers for the people. So what we're doing is helping the people develop themselves so that they can be successful, and giving them the tools and the professionals and the people and the steps to do that, instead of us being like a traditional developer that'll just come in, purchase the property, design out whatever makes them the most amount of money, and try to turn it around and go, oh, we don't care to live or anything. And these eco villages that are going up all around the world, they're mostly developer driven, and they're just going, oh, we picked out good materials and we built another neighborhood, and we're saying it's ecological. And we're trying to go beyond that and go regenerative. And what regenerative means is to basically sit there and know that you're giving more back to the land, you're giving more back to the people, you're thinking about all the aspects and the impacts and the things of your material choices, how you're building, how it's affecting it, how it's creating its own economic structure so it can be successful. And so with these models and things, we're working with DAOs, working with a bunch of different types of ways of sitting there and making organizational structures so that this can be successful around the world, so people can create their own communities. And that's so that they can know how to actually mingle in with the local people and how to actually sit there and commune with them instead of coming in and gentrifying them to build their development. And that's what we've seen in the past, is that the people come in and say, we're doing this great project, but they're not thinking about how that impacts the local people, and how that starts, a lot of resentment between the local people and the teams that come in and just develop, and they don't even like include them or think about them.
Yeah.
But they use them for all the physical labor. And we're trying to reverse that and go, if we can have the manufacturing in a good process that's done indoors, using a lot of technology, using the things that we can use and program it, where we're going, if we build it all in Revit and in these digital models, and we can sit there and have that go straight to the manufacturing, and then go straight to going, now they can go out and gives them a set of plans that actually sits there and helps them to construct this in a way, and using experts like architects and engineers around the world coming up with the best possible solutions and the best materials that are at the local resources of the places that we're doing these projects,
Hmm.
is the thing that a lot of people don't understand. And we're going, we need to have the experts guiding this, rather than just whoever's trying to cut out everything to make the project cheaper, because it's happening all over around Bali. They're building things that don't belong there, that don't have the right air circulation through there. They're just throwing mini splits in there and going, now you have AC. And if they're not using it on the dry setting, and they're using it just on the air conditioning setting, it's putting way too much moisture in that space where they don't have anything dealing with their humidity levels. And so they're getting mold growth in buildings that are, a year old. And they're putting people in sick building situations and making them sick. I had a friend that lived there for a while. We went on a trip in Egypt, and after she ended up leaving that area, she was sick for months, and she had a mold situation going on in her body that she picked up from being in, not environments like that. So this thing is, and that's people that are very well off. And so they're living in places that they're not, this isn't just for people that are living in, or affordable housing and things like that. We need to be treating all levels of architecture, understanding the things that the environment is created by, building properly and having the right tools and being able to create buildings that wick water out of them, rather than have it stabilized and adhering to surfaces on the interior and in the walls, and creating situations that are unhealthy for people. So, and there's people all around the world that, love doing what they do to build beautiful buildings. And I appreciate what they do, but if they're not an expert in thermodynamics and how water and things condensate on surfaces, you can create some bad environments for people. And that's where we're
Hmm.
trying to actually solve that. And to kind of simplify this approach of how we're making this all affordable, is we're going directly to source for anything that we need that we can't actually make in the factory, or we're trying to build everything from growing the crops, growing the things, and then putting it through the manufacturing process and utilizing that right on the land in the area that we're in. And it's going to have to be a process of starting off first, of going, we might have to say in Guatemala, we might have to purchase from another person if we don't have the land to grow our stuff yet. If someone else has some Guadua bamboo, we will order it from them. They will get it to the factory. We'll turn it into strand-woven bamboo for different materials that we can use it for, to actually sit there and put it out to there. But the idea is to, in the future, is have it as a biocyclical as possible and regenerative, where you're actually taking everything that you actually have that's available, you're growing it and building it and using it, and you're giving back to the land, and using permaculture and biodynamic gardening to actually sit there and giving people what they need. And when you're growing these crops that you're using for materials, hopefully they're also creating different things like your food sourcing and different things. And then when you do like hemp grown through the land, it regenerates the soil so that you can use that as a crop that flips out to going, okay, now the next year, let's grow rice. And then maybe that rice that you've got your food now, then you can use the rice husks to make compressed boards, to make, an agro board. And, there's different teams and people that I'm working around the world that are doing these things already. So it's nothing new. It's just we're sitting there and trying to make it into something of going, instead of making it into a commodity that we're going, here's another commercial company that's just selling you materials at very high rates. We're going, how about the people actually make these themselves and teach them how to do these things so they can be
Yeah.
self-sustaining?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. It sounds like a lot of the mission is going to come down to, educating, again,
Exactly.
going back to educating, like you said, teaching people how to pretty much create, like you guys come in, you build the self-sustaining community, but then it's going to come down to making sure that those people understand and know how to keep it self-sustaining and know the materials that are localized there and knowing either how to grow them, how to use them properly, and and then also going into what you're saying about people just building homes, or not homes, but just saying these buildings in vast countries and not understanding the thermal and the water, the moisture in the building. And it's like unfortunate that your friend had to get sick from something like that, probably because the one builder was either too naive or they just didn't really care about, what could actually happen in this atmosphere. It's I never really understood it personally, obviously. I'm not an expert, but it's nice to hear, and I'm sure that people listening, is also nice to hear that there is so much more science behind these buildings than just, buying materials, putting it together in a foundation, building something that looks nice and then just leaving it there. It's like it's not about that. It's about all making sure it's self-sustaining and that you can actually live in these things for a long time, and making sure that it is good for the environment and making sure it is good for the person living in it. Going back to just the educational side of things, do you think AI can play a part in that, where it's a lot of it's hands on when it comes to doing the building and finding out what the person wants and all that kind of stuff? But I feel like there is a lot of things that AI can do to, help the process when it comes to either like the researching or the educating and, getting the information out there. Like I think a lot of people are using AI in good and bad ways, but I think a lot of the good ways are, making sure that you use it for the right reasons, as well as using it for education, using it for research, just, speed up the process so that you can get your mission and your voice out there to more people. Like how do you feel about AI, and whether you're using it or whether you think it's good for what you're doing or not?
Yeah, I'm a big proprietor of AI. We use it in a lot of different ways and different things that we can use, but it's just a supplement. It's a tool. And, to actually sit there and utilize it for, if you have a concept and you're writing something out and you're feeding it good information to say what you're actually trying to get as your output, it's great. But there's a lot of people out there that are trying to sit there without very good education on understanding structures, buildings, and things, that are just sitting there and using it as something to say, hey, look at what I came up with and what I did. And I'm going, the thing is nothing of this is about I, me, or anything. We're trying to get the ego out of this and go, how do we do these things the best for everyone involved? And it's not about, we all can create these things with these digital platforms to sit there and go, here, it looks like a beautiful building. Here's a plan. But every single plan and every single building and anything that I've ever seen created with AI, it can look pretty cool, but it's
It's
not
just the
there
looks.
to sit there and replace having real professionals knowing what's really going on to make this something that can actually be buildable. We're having this issue all over the industry where people are coming in showing me, hey, look at these plans, look at what we come up for our development. We have our whole plan of everything we're going to do. And I'm so glad they can get that much work done to get to that point to go, here, we have a pitch deck of what our concept is, because that saves a lot of time for the team to really get what is the core values, the program, what are people looking to do. But when it comes to analyzing the land, knowing what's done properly, knowing the site, the people, the context, the things like that, we are not even close to actually sitting there and being able to have a program actually understand what it's like to say, these are the things, this is where we need to have our views. These are the things that are actually important to do these things. There's great programs out there people are coming up with to make initial understandings of projects. But the thing is you still need to have engineers, architects, and mechanicals,
Mhm.
people that understand these things and the local culture and the soils and what can actually be done in certain regions where, a lot of people think architects and designers just design and draw up plans. It's like that is not even close to 90% of the work that we do. It's a fun part of our job as we get to do the drawing. But the thing is that's not even, it's a lot of understanding, a holistic understanding of a site, place, people, and everything, and going, what is the best decisions to be made? I love the AI renderings. I love the AI tools that can sit there and help me write things out, put together presentations, write my emails. I don't even know, like the things, there's just so many
Yeah.
things that we can use it for, and we can use it in, in the design phase as well to come up with different concepts and ideas to go, this is what we might want something to look like. But the thing is, it's not going to sit there and at this point be like giving us actual things that are buildable. So we need to understand that it's a great tool to give to work with a professional team of people that actually understand the constraints, and to not come to them and go, well, I've done most of the work for you, because the reality is we still have to do everything,
So much work. Yeah.
to go through every single stage of the project. And with building information modeling, it's great that we have all this more information that we can put a cost to every material, every single thing in the building and everything that we're doing. And then even sit there and take that and go to manufacturing with it. So we can keep a really good understanding of costs and everything that we got to do. But inputting that data and putting all those things in there is a rigorous process. And so to actually sit there and go, I want my project done faster, is actually asking us to not do the proper amount of
Go
time
through the
to,
proper process.
and do all the things, do the testing, because the cost of the design phase to make changes is next to nothing compared to what changes and problems cost during construction, because you have to pull all the people back together and make decisions, waste time, and do things that really have been a real problem for a lot of projects I've seen in the past. And there's a lot of things that people don't even take into account is weather. Like I can't tell you how many projects I've worked on that when they were doing a remodel, that they did something like took the roof off, and then it ended up raining 11 inches in one night, and they had a tarp over it. What do you think it happened? It turned into a pool, and, it turned into some
Ruined.
serious issues and things. So it's like thinking about how we can do things smarter, not faster. So I think what we need to do is have a better understanding that the process of a design and a construction and doing things is a lot of upfront planning, so you can have a very quick and smooth construction process. And what we're doing by manufacturing and being able to build a lot indoors and be able to sit there and give people these micro factories and things that we can go around the world, that going, here's the tools that you need to build what you need to do, is the idea to give them an environment that these people want to live in. And AI can help with so many of the different things of like communicating and putting things between things, but it's just, it still needs to be understood that it is not going to give you anything that a professional doesn't have to look at. I've taken my plans even and put them into a set of AI and say, can you throw me out a budget for this project? And they do. And the thing is it's not terrible. But the thing is it's not a bid.
Not
It's not a
perfect.
vote. It's not based on something of someone in your local area that's going to build it. So you got to understand that I've had projects where people are like, well, hey, we're just going to sit there and do this. And, we're going to try to throw these things into the project. Like say just a material, like we're going to do a hemp floor by just saying one example. Do you have a contractor that knows how to build that in the area, and that they're going to build it to a quality and a standard and ensure that for you? And, that's the thing, is you can be as, exploratory as you want to be. But if you don't have someone that actually knows how to do these things, you're asking them to do something that they're not comfortable with. And if they do that, they're typically going to charge you a lot of money because they don't know. And then they're going to not want to guarantee it because they're sitting there going, this isn't something that they're used to doing. So right back to what you said, yes, the AI with education and tying this together is the most important thing about this. And that's why EcoFi has also started a fellowship that goes along with the construction process. And so wherever we start to do our most manufacturing, right now we're in the for foundations that are aligned. So any foundation that actually wants to do a PRI loan to us to do this manufacturing, that's what we're looking for to support this, so we can start growing this and expanding it. I've tried working with universities and different groups. I was going to do things with them. It's all great and dandy, but the approval process and the having to wait on board for months to get answers is not where we want to be. So that's why we've created this not nonprofit, but a low profit limited liability company.
Yeah.
Believe that we should be creating companies that are profitable, that give back to communities. Because if you're profitable and you're making good business and you're doing things and you can make passive income for your employees and the people that you're working with and creating infrastructure for all them, then you can really truly give back to other people, because we want to be doing things and helping out the Native Americans in the area, any women that actually are single mothers that are looking for housing that's affordable, helping them out with situations, any type of, those communities, different things. How can we start helping these people, but not using taxpayer money to sit there and just subsidize them that at some point they have to turn over to be profitable? So what we're really trying to do is go, how do we reintroduce these situations and people into communities and help them where they aren't shunned or put into some weird Section 9 housing thing that they're like, hey, you're not part of the community. We put you in this area. We want to sit there and do mixed use where we're going, however, we're doing things and creating things for people that we're treating people all fairly and not basically putting them in some category because they're going through a hard time in their lives. So, and we've figured out different ways that we have to protect these type of developments from people as well. If we build them something that's at cost and affordable, and we're way below what anything is on the market standard, you got to think of what we got to protect people from themselves. Because what would they do? They would typically go, "Hey, well, we just got a house for $100,000. It's worth 350. Let's go sell it."
Yeah.
So we have to do things where we have to give them contracts that we're offering a 10-year with our group is going when we do give a house at cost that they can purchase that house. They're not renting; they're purchasing for their rent. And then when they're part of that community and payment for the cost that we agreed to based on the cost, so nobody's losing money, that we go, here, you get that value, but at the end of the 10 years, you can do anything you want with it. But during that first 10 years, you have to sell it back to us as the only people you can sell it back to because and at cost of what it is based off of inflation. Because we're not sitting there and giving people opportunities to take advantage of what we're doing either. And we're really trying to make sure that people aren't coming in and going, whoa, look at the affordable housing things. We're going to buy all those and just sell them for more. So that's why we're really trying to make this franchisable so that we understand that we give a set of rules for people to follow to go, hey, this is how we can do this, protecting people from everybody and giving people a great business structure that's transparent and works out for everyone. And we're not saying that we have it all figured out, but what we're trying to say is that we have a platform that we're working on that will evolve over time as a thing for the people and, trying to find minded individuals that want to join in what we're doing. I'm going to be building the first prototype with this structure in the spring, and we're ready to ramp up, and we have teams and projects all around the world that want to do it. But again, everybody's going, show me one. And the struggle has been I've been working on a lot of projects around the world and going, I have an indoor building factory and we're doing R&D, but we do need some further equipment and things to need to just ramp it up. And I want to be able to pay employees. I want to be able to pay for people to get involved in this and that we can start the fellowship portion of teaching them so that they can teach them how to do these things. And I don't want people to have to go to college to be able to do this. I'm trying to set it up so it's more like a trade school where it's like, if this is something you love doing, you come and learn it. We'll give you a certificate and you can do it. And you can follow it and work for any of these projects around the world. And, that you are someone that, we believe we will pay. And the whole concept is to make it so that whatever they work on, they have a choice to put the part of their actual income into investments into the projects that we're doing. So it creates passive income for them as well. So we're really trying to create a model that's not just sitting there and just helping out the ones at the top. We're basically taking the pyramid and flipping it over and going, everyone at the bottom makes everything, and it trickles down to the people that actually are, involved and just around these projects.
Yeah. No, that's the mission right there, right? I think what you guys are doing is incredible. Flipping the system so that, it's the people first that you guys are building for, and then it's your employees, and then it's like you guys after, right? It's a lot of it you see nowadays is it's the business owner first and what they want to carry out rather than, the mission and the goal in mind for the people. So I think that's amazing stuff. Unfortunately, that's all I got for time for today. Where can people go to see these projects, learn a little bit more about EcoFi or maybe even get involved in the community? Do you have website and socials? so people take a
Yeah,
look at?
you can go onto Facebook at EcoFi Architecture. You can go on to my webpage, which is eco-fi.com, and feel free to reach out with me at my email as well at eco-fi.com. And things that we're working on and doing, I do also have a a YouTube channel just under my name, Jess Glowacki. But right now, we've been trying to keep most everything we're doing by advisories of my team, which used to work for the UN. They're actually sitting there going, we need to keep a lot of the things that we are actually doing under the wraps. We're willing to work with people that we have NDAs with, just because we've had a lot of things that we've worked on in the past taken from us as a team. People try to take the ideas and just run off and do it on their own.
Hmm.
I mean, that means you're doing cool things if that happens. So I know it's not like the worst of things in the world when people steal your ideas, but we are trying to sit there and only work with people that we will release a lot of these concepts and ideas with people that are actually on our team. But yeah, anybody can go to eco-fi.com to look at where our new direction and things are going. The web page is under development by my team, and all of my past work, we're trying to leave it as that. It's my past work. And if someone wants to see old projects and things that I've worked on, I can show it to them. I have my whole CV listed out on my webpage of all the projects I've worked on. But, we're not focusing on what we've done in the past. We're focusing on what we're doing here moving forward.
Of course.
Bear with me here.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. We'll have all of those links in the show notes. And Jess, I just want to say thank you again for the vision. I think a lot of people out there are going to be inspired and are going to be really curious to see, you know, the things you guys are building. I know, like you said, some of it hasn't been really shown yet, but when it is available to see down the line, I'm curious to see myself. I think it's going to be some amazing stuff, and I'm excited for, the end of 2026 and the end of 2027 to see how far you guys have came along, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And, if anybody out there wants to join in what we're doing, we're just looking for people that are willing to jump on and that have, a kind heart and are doing this for humanity and not just for their own personal thing. So I know there's a lot of people out there that want to have something that, they feel like they can be proud of. And that's why we're creating this, is to be a legacy for our children, my daughter, and anyone that we can do this for, is to be like, look what we did to help out, instead of look what we did just to make money.
Yeah, of course. Sweet. And to everyone listening, sometimes the best way to build for the future is to look how nature does it. Whether you're framing a house or planning a neighborhood, ask yourself, is this built for the profit or is it built for the person? Keep building, stay safe, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye, everyone.